Today on Media and Society, we take a look at how certain production houses stand accused of tardy or even non-payment of freelancers and how this affects the industry. Well, hello and welcome to Media and Society. I am your host, Naledi Muleo. Of course, this is the show where we take a look at the intersection between the media and society. As usual, though, the show really isn't complete without your input. So over the next hour, feel free to give us a call on 011-714-0661 or 0662. Right. Well, the South African media industry thrives predominantly on the contributions of freelancers who often juggle multiple roles to keep and sustain themselves. However, amidst an economic downturn, some production houses stand accused of late or outright non-payment, inflicting psychological distress on workers and exacerbating issues such as anxiety and depression. So a significant proportion of individuals in this field have never actually experienced stable employment. They've encountered situations that render them powerless with very few avenues for seeking assistance or redress. But let's talk a little bit about the plight of freelancers in the media industry. We are joined in studio by Tumelo Mohlokoa, who is, or rather on the line by Tumelo Mohlokoa, who is a camera and video editing specialist. We're joined by Jack Devnarain, who is a renowned actor and chairman of the South African Guild of Actors. We're also joined by Ayanda, Yaya, Masisi, content producer and chairperson of Media Change Agents. In studio with us, Mpho Motsoane, who is a digital marketer, branding coach and corporate events planner. We're also joined by Joy Lefifi, who is a lecturer and editor. I want to start in studio, and I think this is a really big discussion. Thank you so much to all of our guests and for making time. Mpho, can I start a little bit with you, right? Do we have the discussion enough and often enough in the country about the state of freelancers in the media industry? Or is it a discussion that we really have after something has gone terribly wrong?
The latter.
Yeah.
Always when something has happened, then we have the discussion. Nothing pre, nothing before, it's always after. The discussion has been, I could say, something that's always been swept under the carpet, oftentimes. So I think these platforms like this are very important so that we can actually speak about these kind of things.
Yeah, Jack, I'm going to bring you in here because with the South African Guild of Actors, you certainly have been raising the alarm on this issue for many years. And I think people, obviously, we look at you and we think about, some of the key characters that you've played on some of the biggest drama series and television productions that we've had in the country. And in the back end, you've been fighting this battle. Why did you take it up firstly to go into the South African Guild of Actors and fight the battle of the payment and the plight for payment by actors when you yourself, many would say, well, you had a thriving career yourself?
Yes, the South African Guild of Actors was established 14 years ago, and that's because of the fact that many freelance performers like myself were having great difficulty in having the terms of our contract enforced. And we find that in the freelance or the gig economy, it's that dynamic still applies, where the person with less negotiating power, that's technical crew, actors, are trying to enforce the rules that are already set in place in that contract, but we never had an opportunity to make any inputs into that contract. We never had a chance to help to draft that contract. The terms of the contract were simply prescribed to us. This is the contract, take it or leave it. And that also means, because of the power imbalance, it means you have enormous difficulty in asking even for the simplest terms of enforcement. Pay me. That's what I'm asking for. And because of that power imbalance, and this is something that's typical across our industry, and all the freelancers that I know have experienced this to some degree or another. And this is the reason that it's important to have a call like this today, because we need to raise the alarm. It's become a trend. It's almost become quite acceptable for production companies, for studios, for broadcasters to say, well, those freelancers are at the very bottom of the chain. If they don't get paid, it makes no difference to our bottom line. Profits come first. So they have effectively sacrificed the people who deliver the performances, the people who put content on screen. And we are the ones who now have to turn the tables.
And I'm going to bring you in here and perhaps talk to us about, where we then really need to start picking at where the problems are. I mean, Jack has essentially said that for the most part, freelancers are given a contract. That's just the state of the contract. You're going to have to accept the terms of that contract. Perhaps we really need to be looking at what these contracts actually say. Right, for the viewer who's watching and says, okay, but actors, people in the media industry have been complaining for decades about payment and the culture within the industry where money is concerned. What is the issue exactly, Ayanda, when we look at some of these contracts?
So we were discussing in a podcast that we are launching, so we recorded, and we actually discovered as we were talking that all our contracts are basically simulated contracts. So it's contracts that production houses make for themselves that are not against the Constitution. So it's the rule that they feel should be, freelancers should abide by based on their company's feelings. It's contract created on feelings, not on the law, So we basically are made to agree to what production companies want to structure their companies like, and it's not the terms that are looking out for us or any like suppliers or anything. It's just to protect themselves. But those contracts are not even legal when you look at them. But the terms in there, they're appalling actually, because you can agree to work hours that are insane. You can agree to some states that it's a 6-day week, but when we need you on the 7th day, please be available. It's a 12-hour day, but if we need you to go for 18 hours, please be available. And overtime is not even included as a conversation. Everybody is just emotionally blackmailing crew to work longer, or even actors to work longer, and saying, okay, but in the next production, if you are dedicated, this shows dedication. If you are dedicated, we'll use you in our next production. Yeah. That's not even a guarantee. So you're giving up your overtime money, you're giving up your actual life in order to make this product come to life, and then you're not even guaranteed that you will get paid. So that's why Mpho was saying that we actually speak in our little corners of the industry, so amongst each other. And Jack was saying we don't really even have bargaining power. Production companies rely on the fact that we don't have any power to stand up for ourselves. So that's why we actually started a podcast, because if we don't have power, then we'll have a voice,
Yeah. Joy, I'm going to bring you in here. You're joining us as well as a lecturer and editor, and I imagine that you've heard this conversation many, many times. And why aren't we able to move the needle? Why do we seem to be going around and round in circles here in the industry when it comes to payment?
Well, I think for freelancers mainly, they're scared that if they speak out, they'll never get work again. That's mainly that, If I mess my relationship with this commissioning editor, I will never be able to work on any of their productions, right? And I mean, some of us, nice fiction. I fight all the way to head of channel. And I've also found that I don't get work as much as I used to, because I confront these people. I can't pitch for my own shows. And I personally feel I don't get those shows because they know me. I'll fight them. Do you understand? So I think the issue now is people need to go back to the top, where you're saying, why am I doing this? Was it really only about money? Is it a calling, or is it something? I don't know. What difference are you trying to make? Because if you're only doing it for money, you're messing all of us up. Do you understand? Because we're fighting for the craft. The content is bad, right? I'm an editor. I'm right at the bottom, like at the end of the chain. People are not shooting properly because you're not getting proper people to shoot. They just doing whatever on set, and then it will be fixed in post, which means 150 hours a day for me. I'm a mom. I have other things to do. I can't do that anymore. And the money is half what I used to make before. So the problem now is, let's go back to the top. Why are you doing TV? There's little money, yes. Does it not mean that directors must be proper, things must be shot properly so that everybody can finish in time and move on to the next production? Do you understand? So freelancers are just all saying, you know what, as long as I get paid, I'll do the hours as long as I get something and they call me back again. So we are the problem actually right now.
Well,
You
it sounds like,
understand?
yeah, it sounds almost like a chicken and egg situation, if you will, though, because you're essentially saying that the freelancers themselves are to blame because we're happy to just work and hold on to the job, even though we're not happy with the quality we're putting out. And then we're not going to be happy with the money that we get out because there's a dissatisfaction with the quality. And it goes round and round in circles. Dumi, I know you want to come in here, Tumelo. You're a camera and a video editing specialist yourself. And again, this isn't an issue only for the front of the camera talent that we're seeing that, you know, for years, once again, has come out publicly complaining about how they're being treated by production houses and broadcasters. But talk to me a little bit about what you're experiencing on the back end.
With me, actually, funny thing is that I was in the same production with Ayanda. They called us to do this production, to shoot it, and it's been over a year. So even when we call the production company, Cutting Plate, they always tell us, no, we'll pay you, and it's been over a year. And yesterday, actually, I was told that I'm annoying, that I want my money. So, like, for me, it's quite funny. And I think to go back to what Joy said is that we're not even united as freelancers, because they would come to me and say, to me, what's your day rate? And I'll be like, okay, my day rate is 2,800. And they'll be like, okay, no, that's expensive. And they'll go to somebody, and that person, because they're desperate, we're all desperate, but that person, they'll be like, no, we'll give you 1,000 rand. He'll say yes, and not realizing that he's killing the whole industry by just saying yes to that low amount. So it's one of those things that we too need to fix on our end and start agreeing that this needs to be, like, there need to be a standard rate that everybody's going to be use, and we need, like, standard working times for all of us, because I was in a production where on the contract it was stated that I'm only doing 12 hours and they're not going to pay for overtime. And we went overtime. And when immediately I started picking my equipment, they're like, no, but you guys are not done. But I'm like, on the contract it says we can't go overtime. And I was told that if I leave, I'm not going to be paid. So it's one of those issues that we're dealing with as freelancers.
If you'll allow me, guys, and I'm going to go back to, and I'll come back to you a little bit, Mpho. I want to stay with our guests that are joining us virtually, just to get some of the personal stories, whether they be some of your own or someone else's, perhaps even if you don't share, their name. But really, what I'm trying to get to is for the viewer to really understand that when they watch content on their screens, just how much is really going on and what's been put into what they're watching. So, Jack, I'll let you have the first bite here and say, okay, for the most part, we see certain actors and, you know, they walk through the mall and people get excited to see them because they think, oh, there's a big superstar. What do they not know about the reality of that person's life? So many times we've heard of actors say, well, I was famous and everyone knew my name, but I was starving and my fridge was empty and my car was gone. And these are some of the tragic stories that talent is dealing with. Any stories, personal accounts or stories that stand out for you, Jack?
Well, yeah, I'm still waiting for monies to come through for a production that I had done nearly 3 years ago. It's for actors, it's not so much about whether you're paying on my contract or not. It's about whether actors have a right to earn residuals, which is a pillar for actors earning rights around the world. Royalties, residuals, that's how we should be earning. It's the fact that in South Africa, we are not allowed to earn that kind of residual income that's the real problem. And just to be very clear, performers in South Africa are less concerned about whether they are recognizable or not. What they want is to have a fair deal, is to actually be able to say, I was paid fairly for the work that I'm doing and for the work that's being my work that's being exploited and seen around the world. As you know, the famous story of Henry Cele, the late Henry Cele in Shaka Zulu. That series was shot in 1985. All Henry Cele was ever paid was just his performance fee, and yet that series has made its way around the world over and over and over again, streamed, broadcast, put into DVD. It's earned more than 5 billion rand in additional revenue, licensing deals and all of that, but he never got a share of that. And it speaks to the inherent injustice. And just to pick up on something very important that Tumi mentioned about setting standard rates and contract conditions, the danger in, and to be very clear, it is exactly what we need in the freelance sector. What we can't do, though, is because we are not protected under the Labor Relations Act, it means any attempt to establish standard rates and conditions is a violation of competition law. You can only establish standard rates and contract conditions if it is protected within a collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
If it is across the table and part of a negotiation with other industry players. Otherwise, we're just going to be price fixing.
Yeah, and then what we should do then towards the end of our discussion is really talk about what that collective bargaining needs to look like, right? And the reality is, for a lot of people in this industry, there simply isn't what one could call a union culture in the media industry. I mean, Joy, do you want to take a bite at that one? Because there is that sense that, well, there's very little protection for people in the media industry because union culture isn't necessarily as strong as it is in many other sectors, correct?
Are you talking to me? Because we lost
yes, Joy,
network a
yes.
bit, sorry. Yeah. I mean, you know what? Like, I mean, I was part of Sage for a long time, right? Somehow, because of, I don't know, work, somehow work comes to you directly. And we sort of like forget the rules and we get carried away. And I think with me, personal experience, it's been the freelancers more than the organizations because they are there, they are set up, but we don't really follow what really needs to happen to understand. Where I feel right now, I agree with, I think it's Tumi, where he's saying there needs to be standard rates for everyone. There must be a minimum. As an editor, you cannot be taking 1,000 rand. Understand? Because you definitely know that they won't pay you overtime. They won't pay you for coming in on a Sunday. There should just be a standard rate. That, I think, as a freelancer, will also save us more than anything. Because these organizations, sometimes you haven't been working for 3-4 months, so you are not able to pay the whatever that they want, the fee. Do you understand? But there must be a standard rate. This is what you can take or this is what you cannot take.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Ayanda, what happens then is, and I see you wanting to lean in there, Ayanda, you with the South African Guild of Editors will have that rate and say, well, this is what we charge, and this is what we're going to continue charging moving forward. But now, lady comes in as an editor and she's 23 years old. She's still very, very green. She really wants the opportunity. And someone says to her, well, you can do 500 rand, and she'll simply take it. And there goes the discussion right out the window all over again. Ayanda?
So on the issue of unionizing, as media change agents, we had started researching on forming a union, but for freelancers, we can't. So for a long time, I didn't understand why, until I had a conversation with Jack, where he was explaining that we in the Constitution as freelancers or in the labor law, we're not recognized as employees. And employees can unionize, freelancers cannot unionize. Maybe he can explain that concept a bit more because he knows it better. But yeah, media change agents, we had researched because what we did discover, like many are saying here, is that the fact that we're not tied together in agreement on a certain standard, even if it's not just the money, even if it's not rates. So even if we can't say that, okay, guys, don't go below a certain amount. You can take higher or whatever, but don't go below a certain amount because you're then messing the rest of us up, right? Even if it's not on the money part. There's an issue of unpaid overtime. So what we need to at least agree on is that if I'm saying I'm not going to do unpaid overtime, don't you be the person who then takes those terms and says, okay, cool, I'll work. I'll be a team favorite or whatever. And then, because then I'm screwing the rest of everyone else up because we're fighting to say that we need better treatment. If I'm saying I'm not going to work 6 hours without, because some production companies then do this thing where there's no catering, cater once in a 12-hour day. So if I'm saying, guys, I need to eat. I was pregnant at the height, in my 3rd trimester, I was working on the production. And in those times, I would be working, doing diaries for 5 hours straight. And I'm like, guys, I need to nibble. I need to eat. I need to feed my baby. So if I'm saying I'd like to fight for eating more regularly, the next person, don't then say, no, I'm fine to eat once a day. It's okay. Because then you're telling the production company that, Ayanda, if you can't do it, someone else will. That's why then Joy has a problem of then finding edits that are too long, because they replace a me who's good at her job with someone who's easier to manage but is not good at the job, and then shoots problems, brings problems to the edit. Now the edit is working longer to fix those problems.
Yeah,
so it trickles
so
down.
I want to do this, and we need to take a short break, and I want to sit on a point that Ayanda has made, and this is really, really poignant if you listen to it. So you're looking at the actors, the presenters, the teams that put together the media content that you see, and what Ayanda said is that for the most part in the labor laws, a freelancer isn't considered as employed. Can you imagine what that does when you're applying for a home loan, vehicle finance, simple services that all working individuals should be able to access? We're going to talk a little bit more about that, and then of course we'll bring Mpho in and talk about what this all then does for the brands that these practitioners are then driving. Does all of this talk damage the brands, and does the brand feed then how they can solve that particular issue around access to their money? Let's take a short break. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. Well, we continue our discussion around the culture of late or non-payment of practitioners in the film and television and media fraternity as a whole. Still in conversation with our various guests on this really hot topic, one that has been going on for decades really in South Africa. We are still in conversation with Tumelo Mohlokoa, who is a camera and video editing specialist, to Devnarain, who is a renowned actor and chairman of the South African Guild of Actors, Ayanda Masisi, content producer and chairperson of media change agents, Mpho Motsoane, who is a digital marketer, branding coach and corporate events planner, as well as Joy Lefifi, who's a lecturer and editor. All right, let's bring in the issue around branding now, Mpho, if you'll allow us, right? Jack earlier talked about how some of the biggest names that we see on our screens are really not interested in the recognition, right? And people saying, well, I know who Naledi Molewa is, they just want to be treated fairly. But how much does that brand actually make a difference about whether or not you're going to be treated differently in a corporate space then, where we're starting to talk about the numbers? Does the brand make a difference in how you're treated?
I suppose it does, and to some extent, depending on how you build your brand, because you need to package your brand in a way that will be appealing to your audience. Obviously, branding means to basically create something that's identifiable in the public space. Therefore, as you, Naledi, you can build your brand in a way that you could be easily identifiable as the TV host, right? For example. So it's kind of a currency in a sense, because for instance, you could be a TV host, but nobody really knows about you. E.g., I'm just making an example here. But when you walk into spaces and nobody knows about you, they're going to ask, who are you? And you tell them, I'm Naledi and I'm a host, I'm an anchor. And then you present yourself. However, if you had built your brand, instantly there's some sort of level of respect because your work has been seen, your work is known. Automatically people tend to respect you without even knowing you on a personal level. So hence I'd always encourage people to build their own personal brands in the media industry, especially like behind the scenes people. We never know who they are. We never know the guys who are operating the camera. We never know the content producers. We never know, but they're the ones that are piecing the stories together, that are making things happen. They are staying up for 160 hours editing the whole week. So we never see the work that goes behind the scenes. And those people bring the magic together. They make the magic work. And so if you're able to build that personal brand, you are able to show the world that more so actually build that currency, you know?
Right. No, 100%. And Mpho, Tumi, let me bring you in here. Of course, that's a difficult thing for you to do when you're a camera operator and a video specialist, a video editing specialist as well. I mean, does that sort of thing actually appeal to you, where you say, oh, perhaps, you know, let's improve your personal brand and perhaps then you'll be treated better by production houses?
It's quite tricky because we are in the back end, as Joy said. So no one really sort of cares about, oh, he's the editor, oh, he's the camera operator. Because in South Africa, it's one of the weirdest things that in South Africa, crew and especially people in post-production, are not taken seriously as Mr. Jack. You know what I mean? It's like, they'll just fix it in post. So we always like the people, the solutions, and no one really cares about what we do per se. You know what I mean? So I don't think we can be taken as brand.
Yeah. Jack, let me bring you in here. I want to go back to that point that Ayanda made before the break, and that really actually shook me a little bit, because it's something that I think a lot of us in the industry have experienced before. You find a home, you apply for a home loan, and you may very well be able to afford the home, but you're told because you're a freelancer, you simply are not considered employed. And so you're not going to be able to buy a home. You're going to struggle to buy something as simple as a vehicle. I mean, Jack, talk to us about the stories that you've seen around that, right? Where people are incredibly famous, but they simply cannot have assets because of the structure and the nature of their work.
Yeah, it's the way in which the world of insurance and finance and banking views us as freelancers. They see us as having a very high risk, precarious workflow. So they know that our income is erratic. And all they know, and I'm not just in South Africa, but globally, insurance companies, banking institutions, investment organizations, all of them are only focused on mitigating risk. They want your money, but they want your money on a monthly income basis, which means debit orders. You and I as freelancers do not work month to month. We do not earn month to month. So there's a complete mismatch in terms of our ability as freelancers to satisfy the conditions that are laid out by the formal institutions in the banking and financial world. So you and I can be earning many times more than, let's just say, a spouse who is in permanent employment.
Right.
But if the spouse walks in and says, I'm asking for a loan, I'd like to buy a car, I'd like to apply for a home loan, they will immediately be taken more seriously, simply because on the basis of their monthly salary income, it means that they are a lot safer. That means that the risk that the bank is taking on you is being mitigated far better than if you and I earning 10 times more, but we're not earning month to month.
Yeah.
So we are seen as high risk. And that's the challenge, because there is absolutely no intention that we can see coming from the side of the banking and insurance institutions to meet us halfway. And all they're saying is, we're happy to provide you the product, just make sure you're paying it on a month-to-month basis.
Okay.
Now, lady, can I come in with a personal
Yes, go
story
ahead,
here?
please, yes.
So there's a company that hadn't paid me my October salary, and I was giving birth in November. And so November, December, January, I didn't get it, the salary, right? So I called and I said, I'm trying to apply for loans, but I'm not recognized as an employee, and you guys don't even give me payslips. So firstly, they don't trust me as a person who is going to pay back. But also there's the issue of interest. Who is going to pay that interest? Because I'm taking this loan because you haven't paid me.
Yes.
So who must pay that interest? Yes, I'm going to take that loan and owe the bank that much. But now the cost of the additional monies that must come out has to come from me. Meanwhile, I'm only in this situation because you're holding my money.
Yes.
So we had to call Jack, we had to call their church, we had to call so many people in order for them to finally pay. And eventually they paid, but it's only because we had reached out to so many people, and some people in media change agents actually helped me fight to this cause on Twitter.
Yeah, perhaps Ayanda, let me stay with you, because the issue of bargaining, bargaining power came up before with the break, and then we had to chat about it off air as well. I mean, how successful have we really been in setting up bargaining councils or bargaining platforms? I mean, we've got, Joy earlier mentioned the South African Guild of Editors, Jack is with the South African Guild of Actors. Here at the SABC, there's the Communication Workers Union, there's BEMAU as well. There are so many of these structures representing media practitioners. I get the sense that there's very little synergy amongst these organizations, Ayanda.
It's only from a lack of knowing each other and knowing the work that we do. Because once Jack and I actually started having conversations, we actually saw that our work is quite aligned. So media change agents, not many people know that we represent freelancers, but it's not just crew, there's extras and actors too. And then when I spoke to Jack, he was like, actually, as actors, we're also about the work, the industry that you are in. And many of the causes that we are fighting for are parallel. So it's just a lack of knowing that each organization has the same kind of constitution that they are abiding by, and therefore can unite in certain causes.
Yeah.
I managed to meet some people from like the IPO and other organizations through SASFED, and it was during COVID when I was fighting for relief funds for freelancers because they were being held by government, so they weren't being released even though they were there. So we had to do a campaign to compel the minister to release them, and it's through SASFED. So when SASFED then introduced me to other organizations, I realized that there's also the IDAF, there's also all these. So there's a lady at SASFED who was then linking me to other organizations. That's when my eyes opened. It was, oh, okay, there are other organizations, but we just don't know each other, and we need to actually start learning about each other because we are all. There's also a thing where we would have a bigger voice and more negotiating power within government structures if we actually walk in as a collective, you know.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to take one final short break, and then when we come back, let's really start to talk about recommendations of what we do here. And certainly as we leave this conversation through the various structures that you're all a part of, I hope that we can then maybe start to get some direction on who needs to be held accountable as we go into 2024. Certainly in March, April, there'll be the big changes that happen in the industry with the turn of the financial year. And what is the goals that we should need to be setting ourselves to improve the lives of media practitioners in the sector? We'll do that and more on the other side of this short break. Do stay with Media and Society. Welcome back. Well, we're still continuing to have our discussion on the plight of media practitioners in getting their money from their employers. We continue our discussion with Tumelo Mohlokoa, who is a camera and video editing specialist. We also are joined by Jack Devnarain, who is a renowned actor and chairman of the South African Guild of Actors. Ayanda Masisi, content producer and chairperson of Media Change Agents. Mpho Motsoane is joining us in studio, digital marketer, branding coach as well. And we're joined by Joy Lefifi, who is a lecturer and editor. Joy, I'm going to come to you and say, okay, we're really moving towards wrapping this up, right? What do you want to see take place after this discussion is ended, as we get closer into, the new year, certainly the new financial year, March, April, where a lot of shifts are going to be taking place in the industry, and really the scramble for resources starts now? What do you want to be seeing take place, come out of this? Who needs to be held accountable?
It starts with, if I sign a contract and you say you're going to pay me, number one. Right? I mustn't chase you or pay attorneys to get my salary. Do you understand? That is the whole thing. Right now, we're taking those peanuts. Just give me my peanuts, Batom. I shouldn't be following you around or calling you 100 times to get my money. Do you understand? And freelancers survive SARS. That's where we make our money. July, we know it's a good month for us. We get something out of SARS. And if you don't give me my IRP5, if you don't give me what I need to get that money, you are killing me. Do you understand? Going forward, let's start at the top because it might get complicated. Give me my salary on the day that you said you're going to pay me. Give me my IRP5. Give me my pay slip. If you don't have pay slips because you claim that you're a small company, at least give me a letter with a letterhead that says, I paid him. Do you understand? And if we can just get the basics right of what we agreed on, then it will work.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because if we start introducing new things, your complications. So just do that. And then make sure you are ready for post, for example. Bring what is needed so that I can also go home and bath instead of sitting in the edit suite for 2 days. trying to put together one segment, you know, just the basics. Let's start with the basics and respect each other for whatever you've got a fixed salary. I don't. I need to go home. I need to find other work. I need to raise children. And if you can just get that right, then we're good.
Yeah. You know, you paint a very bleak story of the reality for media practitioners, and it's actually truly heartbreaking. And I can just imagine the extremes that you can be pushed to from a mental health point of view, and we've certainly seen it. The unhealthy behavior of some media practitioners as a result of just the mental and emotional strain that practitioners are under a lot of the time. Dumi, I'm going to come back to you again, Tumelo. We go into the new year. Who do you want to be held accountable? And perhaps you'd like to, point a finger. A lot of the time we say, well, the production house may not have paid you, Tumelo, because they haven't received the money from the broadcasting platform. Whatever it may be, who do we hold accountable?
For me, it's two people, honestly. First of all, it's the broadcaster. I think the broadcasters need to make sure that we as freelancers are treated fairly, because with my situation with cutting plate, I went to the broadcaster and the broadcaster told me, no, we're not involved in this. You need to talk to the production company. So for me, I just feel like the broadcaster only cares about the content that they get, and that's it. The second one, it's us as freelancers. We need to, we as creative, we need to be one, and we need to tell these people that, no, we're not doing it this way, we're doing it this way, which is the proper way. So, I'm really disappointed with the broadcasters on not making sure that everybody's treated fairly. And I think for them, they just care about their viewers and their profit. And not, it's like we're in a sweatshop, actually. As freelancers, we're in a sweatshop. So, we just want our money. And we need to feed our family. It's been over a year, fighting for something. You get tired. There's a fellow editor that I know that actually committed suicide because of this. And every day, for me, I think about it is that you have to pay rent, you have to do all these things. And this person, every time when you talk to him, it's like he makes you feel like you are the bad person by wanting your money. And you have done all these things, you have used your equipment. And for me, the sad thing is that I'm a production company. I get outsourced to shoot and edit. Now, all these people that I've hired that to come and shoot, they think, no, Mpho Pasha Studios is the one that's not paying us. And when I show them, it's like, no, it's this production company that outsourced me. It's really bad for us.
Yeah, the trickle-down effect goes on and on and on. Jack, your view on who we hold accountable, particularly as we go into the new financial year, who needs to pull up their socks?
We have to look at it in terms of which groups are fighting for industry regulation, and you'll find that's a simple answer. It's the people on this call. The freelancers are fighting for regulation of the industry. In a regulated industry, I'll be able to say, this is my input in the contract. I'm holding you to the terms of the contract. You are going to pay me as per the contract. But you also have people who are fighting against regulation. The people fighting against regulation are the ones who earn the profits. They're the ones who are controlling the budgets. They are the ones who are controlling the contracts. Those are the broadcasters and a lot of the producers. So it's very easy for us on this call to say, we're going to organize, we're going to speak with one voice. There is no such thing as one voice. If there are people fighting for regulation and there are people fighting against regulation, because they are the ones who are eating the profit. So ultimately, we need to be a group of organizations, and we mustn't blame the victims here. Freelancers are the victims. But it is the nature of the freelance industry that we are not allowed to organize. That's why we have the South African Guild of Editors, Guild of Actors. We are not allowed to unionize. But I can tell you that there are developments this year where we will be able to stand together. We will be able to formally unite, to form a group of solidarity in order to take our representations to government. And government understands the language that we are speaking. And we will absolutely make sure that the broadcasters and those producers are going to be held to terms. Let
me ask you this, Jack, and I'm going to give you just one last question that I need to squeeze in here, because you said, well, one thing that we need to do, and Joy said this as well, We have terms in the contract. Just stick to the terms of the contract. Pay me as much as you said you would. Pay me when you say you do. When those things have not taken place and an actor or a media practitioner wants to take the production house or broadcaster to task, what has been the success rate realistically of taking these organizations to account? Realistically.
Yes, we have to be very clear. There is a mechanism that is built into the contract to manage a conflict or a dispute. That is your arbitration clause. You will find it in any actor's contract. You will find it in any crew contract. But the arbitration itself is a process that is unaffordable and takes too long. It requires a process of, let us find the independent arbitrator. Can we at least engage in mediation first? And then from mediation to go to arbitration. That is an unworkable system. And it is in those contracts precisely because the broadcasters and the producers know that it is simply buying them time. It is impractical. What we need is access to a different kind of dispute resolution mechanism, something that's going to work for us, something that's going to be affordable to the freelancers and the way in which we earn.
Yeah.
So what's been happening is that if the contracts and the provision for managing a dispute, let's just say for non-payment, is already against us, is already working against us, it's not in our favor, then you can see that we are not the ones who created that. We need to have a different kind of conflict resolution mechanism, and that's what we are looking for when we are talking to government now.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you, Ayanda. Talk to us a little bit about what the media change agents then will be focusing on in 2024. Who are you wanting to hold accountable, what you've set your sights on for the year?
So what I found in my work as a content producer as well as in media change agents is that sometimes the broadcaster doesn't even know that the production company is running its business in that way, right? So, for instance, in a company the company that I mentioned earlier, suppliers, the broadcaster had given the company milestone monies. So for this period, shoot and buy all the consumables and everything and hire, after you've delivered this, then we'll give you this much money. After you've done this, we'll give you that much money. However, the production company decided to use the money, is their business or whatever, but it wasn't sent to suppliers. It wasn't sent to crew for salaries. There were houses that were hired and then the owners were not paid. There's all of that, right? The broadcaster doesn't know. So those suppliers skipped the producers and went to call Channel and said, hi, I need my money. And Channel was like, we paid for this. So it's a line item in the budget. This has been budgeted for. We gave the company this money. So what do you mean you're calling me for the money when the production company has that money, has been given that money? So in terms of who needs to be held accountable, I think Channel needs to check more often on how the money is being used in the production, because it's not distributed according to the agreement that the production company has. Channel. Yeah. That's why you then find that suppliers and crew and cast are then not paid. So with media change agents this year, we started a podcast for this reason, because there's a communication breakdown. The channel doesn't know what's happening with production companies. Production companies are hiding a lot of things. So because I've worked in the industry and I know after having a voice, you sort of get soft blacklisted. It's like a soft block, right? Yeah. So I've already decided that I'm fine to just have the podcast and speak on the issues, because they need to be brought forward. Because the production companies are surviving on the fact that they're not regulated, as Jack was saying, and they're surviving on the fact that we are silent, or we only speak amongst each other. And Channel never gets to hear these conversations because everybody has a fear of, I can't speak to the broadcaster, I can't skip, there's a line of communication, I can't skip my producer. Fine, you produce. I will do the podcast. As media change agents, we will talk. We will talk about issues. We will let more freelancers come through and discuss their issues. And the more we do, then there will be transparency, because they fear nothing. Production companies are low unto themselves. They fear nothing, and they don't even fear the law. They fear when you open the space for them. So taking them to see CMA, and it's like, you guys are doing.
Okay, Ayanda,
They
I
don't
need
feel-
to wrap it up. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Mpho, I think your closing thoughts here on really what you take out of the discussion, who needs to step forward so that we continue to give our viewer quality productions, because ultimately that's what the viewer wants. But for us to be able to do that, we need to be a functioning industry.
Absolutely. Just to touch base on what Ayanda had mentioned, I've had similar experiences. Actually, I'm still encountering. And I just want to say, the problem is when production companies do these things, exploiting us, one, not paying us, they're killing young people's dreams. I had a dream to be the biggest cinematographer in the world that died along with non-payment, along being shadowed into the dark, right? One particular producer, one I have actually been going back and forth with regarding payment, once tweeted that when you put my name on your CV, be sure. That sounds like a threat to me. And funny enough, every time I have her name on my CV, I don't get any calls. So that it's very alarming that there's this thing where there's intimidation. There's all these levels, right? That's why platforms like Media Change Agents are very important, because personally, I'd go there and ask questions in places where I'm not, in areas that I'm not quite clear about, and get advice and get clarity. How do I go forward when a producer does this or does that? Because that I've realized now that I've been working in corporate, because I kind of moved away from media, I realized that the reason why things are not working in media and things are working in corporate is because of regulation.
Right, and the lack thereof in the media space. And that's where the focus needs to be then in 2024. And I expect that all of our guests will really start, or can continue to drive for more regulation of the space. Thank you so much to my guests, Tumelo Mohlokoa, Jack Devnarain, who is with the South African Guild of Actors, Ayanda Masisi, who is with Media Change Agents, as well as Joy Lefifi, lecturer and editor. And that's how we wrap up Media and Society. The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Mike Masiabato, will hold a media briefing in Pretoria today to provide a report back on the festive season border operations. So do stay with SABC News for that. And thank you so much for tuning into Media and Society. I've been your host, Naledi Molao.